I think I'm finally in a good enough headspace to finally talk about this Knicks-Raptors trade. So I'll start with the Raptors part because it's pretty simple. Like, this was a great trade for them. And I actually give Masai Ujiri a lot of credit because a lot of people clowned him last year for not trading OG for 4 first-round picks. That was the rumored trade proposal I think maybe Memphis was offering for OG Anunoby, and Masai said no, and everyone clowned them like 4 first-round picks. That's so many. So to not make that deal and then get a player like Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, I think it's a nice get, but I do have questions about his fit alongside, I guess for now, Pascal Siakam and then also Scotty Barnes. But at the end of the day, he's like 23 years old. That he's definitely worth, like, I don't even want to call it a flyer, but like that's definitely like someone who you want to bet on his potential, especially with the homecoming element of it. Like, that's definitely something worth trying to capitalize on. But the big return for this deal for the Raptors is Immanuel Quickley. It literally solidifies their point guard position for the future. I would much rather have like the player who I know is good, who is only going to get better, versus like 4 first-round picks, which like could turn into like a whole bunch of hypotheticals. It's like you would want one of those first-round picks to turn into Immanuel Quickley, and if one of them did, you'd be ecstatic. So why not just go get Immanuel Quickley? So Masai held out, and it worked out really well for him. And Immanuel Quickley and Scotty Barnes is going to be an insane duo. And I think Immanuel Quickley, I saw a really great tweet where it said that Immanuel Quickley is going to do to the Knicks what Jalen Brunson did to the Mavs, right? Where it's like they were sort of undervalued guys who are going to go to a new team and then really break out. I'm fully convinced that's going to happen with Immanuel Quickley, and as bummed as I am to see him go, I'm definitely excited for him to finally get the opportunity that I think he has not been shy about saying. He said before that he wants to be a starting point guard. He thinks he's a starting point guard in this league. Now he's going to get the chance to do it, and it was just, to get one of the best young point guards in the NBA was a great get from Toronto's, and considering they didn't even want to keep OG Anunoby, like, to get that guy, like, good on them. Now, from the Knicks' perspective, oh my god, this is an interesting deal. I'll admit that it's a bit hard for me to take the emotion out of seeing RJ and IQ go, because, you know, everyone always talks about like the whole built versus bought model when it comes to championships or just winning. Everyone's like, oh, it's the same thing. Like, it's not. And it's really nice when you could see players who you drafted, like, you watch their entire journey and you watch them grow. You're there with the ups and downs. Like, there's something more gratifying about that versus just signing a guy to free agent. And I think that's really tough for Knicks fans. It's like, we watched those guys grow. They were a big part of this resurgence to make the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. Like, they were key guys, and to see them go is really tough. I also think one of the reasons it's tough is because I think we all thought that if those guys were going to be traded, it was going to be in a trade for like the guy, like the best player on a championship team, which everyone says we need, and it wasn't that. So that's like a bit tough to deal with. I think Knicks fans are a bit easier to lose RJ because I think like going from RJ to OG is like an insane upgrade. We would want RJ to be what OG is, right? We've been hoping he would develop into like this big wing, a 3-and-D guy who can defend the opposing teams like a Jason Tatum's and the Jaylen Browns of the world, while also knocking down threes and also being able to put the ball on the floor a little bit. That's who OG Anunoby is. So, like, to be able to fill RJ's role with OG with, like, exactly the kind of skills and the kind of abilities we need at that spot in a way that much better complements a Jalen Brunson and a Julius Randle, I think that part of it is a win. The thing that's tough to grapple with, though, is that we had to give up Immanuel Quickley to do it. And I don't know how to feel. A lot of people are coming to the defense of the front office by saying, like, well, you know, the Knicks didn't value him anyway, or they weren't going to pay him. And it's like, well, that's not a good enough reason to trade a guy. Then the criticism should be, hey, the Knicks should have valued this guy more, because for as long as Quickley has been in the NBA, every single piece of data and even the eye test would show that he was so much better. He made the Knicks so much better when he was on the court. And this year in particular, it was getting so egregious. And the fact that he was playing fewer minutes than last year, I think there's just a lot of frustration in terms of like, I don't feel like we invested enough in Immanuel Quickley as we should have. Not necessarily in the like giving him an extension this past summer, but like, again, like all the data suggested that he should be playing. And then it was starting to just become obvious, like, hey, maybe we should start him. Like, maybe, like, I obviously understand what he does to the bench unit and how that helps, and that matters for a team that relies so much on its depth, but, like, at a certain point, maybe we should just be playing our best players, and Immanuel Quickley was by far one of our 5 best players. But just time and time again, it looked like the Knicks didn't really care to utilize him, or just never really knew or appreciated what they had. And I know we could say all this stuff about, like, well, he sort of plays the same position as Brunson, and the size and whatever, like, all these different question marks. Like, I just want to play my best players, and I think that's sort of one of the frustrating things about this deal is that, like, the Knicks sort of found this diamond in the rough late in the first round, and, like, everyone saw how special it was. And don't get me wrong, the Knicks obviously, like, saw that it was great, that it was impactful, but, like, I just don't think to the same extent. Like I said at the top, like, it might be like a Jalen Brunson scenario where he goes to another team and then thrives. And you could argue like, hey, like Immanuel Quickley just needed a bigger role, bigger opportunity. And so look, he was never going to have like the role he's going to have in Toronto, in New York, but like there's definitely room for him to be doing more, and the Knicks just never really let him do it. And I think there's a lot of frustration in that. But that being said, I think if we're going to trade him, I think to get a guy like OG back, which again, like that was like literally like our big piece that we were missing. Besides, I guess, a best player on a championship team type of guy, it was literally the, like, because the Knicks have a lot of like 3-and-D like guards, like a Grimes and like, you know, Josh Hart. Like those guys are more better served at guarding because they're only like 6'4", 6'5", so they're better off guarding guards. DiVincenzo's another one. But the Knicks really lack like that 6'7", 6'8", like beefy forward, like the guys who can guard like small forwards and power forwards. We lack that defensive guy. And so to get OG to fill that role, you assume that he's going to re-sign this summer as a free agent, because otherwise why on earth would the Knicks do this deal? So like in a vacuum, it's definitely a good move, especially when you consider that the Knicks also got back Malachi Flynn and Precious Achiuwa. Those are two like solid pieces who could play. They extended Deuce McBride as a result, and I think they're going to invest more in him. And so like I don't think the Knicks bench is going to be as depleted as, you know, one might think without Immanuel Quickley. And also for the Knicks to not have to trade a first-round pick in this deal was pretty impressive. I think that's sort of like the give and take of like trading quickly, where it's like if you trade a really great player, you don't have to give as many picks and vice versa. So yeah, in a vacuum, you take, you know, because again, like Immanuel Quickley was in a way redundant for the Knicks because they do have so many ball handlers, they do have so many perimeter guys. So you take an area of strength and you make it a little less potent, but then you fill such a massive area of need. So like it's obviously a win on paper for the Knicks in that sense. And again, you don't trade the first round pick. You also get back a Precious Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn. Precious Achiuwa is going to be massive for the Knicks because they really don't have a lot of front court depth right now. So it definitely feels like a win-win deal. I just know that I speak for a lot of Knicks fans where like it just feels really sad because anytime you have to trade, you know, homegrown talent that you watch develop and who gave you so many great moments, like RJ and IQ were part of so many awesome moments for the Knicks over the last few years in building them back to relevancy. Like I know we all talk about Randall being like the guy who sort of brought them back in 2021 as the All-Star, and then obviously Jalen Brunson, but like RJ and IQ were big parts of that. And so to see them go, especially when you could definitely make the argument that they weren't utilized in the best way, specifically IQ, like it definitely leaves a sort of sour, bitter taste in the mouth of a lot of Knicks fans. And I think that's what's making the deal so tough to come to terms with, despite all the benefits it has for the Knicks.